Okay, so you wanted to take a deep dive into Ryan Kavanaugh, huh? Well, he's definitely a fascinating guy, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah,
But he's also super controversial.
definitely.
I mean, you probably know him from those big Hollywood movies he's been involved with, like The Social Network,
Right.
Limitless, The Fighter,
Yeah, yeah.
even Cowboys and Aliens.
Big movies. Big movies.
But Kavanaugh's career, it's not just those box office hits, you
No.
know? He's also got this whole history of, like, serious legal battles and even bankruptcies.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's not all just glitz and glamour with this guy.
So is he, like, this visionary who just pushes things too far?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he actually, like, a con artist?
That's the question, right?
It's a big question.
It's a big question.
So let's try to figure this out.
Yeah, let's dig in.
Let's see what we can uncover by examining all this evidence that you provided.
Yeah, and one thing that really stands out is that even before Kavanaugh hit it big in Hollywood, his early career back in the late 1990s had some red flags already popping up.
Yeah, that's interesting.
We're talking about lawsuits, allegations of fraud, even whispers of a Ponzi scheme.
Whoa, hold on. A Ponzi scheme?
That's what some of the sources suggest.
That's not exactly, like, the typical beginning for a Hollywood mogul, is it?
No, not really.
And then there's this whole thing about how he managed to avoid a $7.7 million judgment
Right.
by claiming that he was about to go bankrupt. I mean, that seems, I don't know.
It seems a bit convenient, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit audacious, especially that early in his career.
For sure. I mean, it definitely raises questions about his approach to business right from the get-go.
So, okay, let's jump ahead to the early 2000s. This is when Kavanaugh co-founds Relativity Media.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, things seemed to be going incredibly well.
Like, really well. I mean, they were striking deals left and right with big studios like Marvel.
And making hit after hit.
Kavanaugh was, like, the golden boy of Hollywood.
He was. He was on top of the world.
Yeah. It was like a real rags to riches story.
Yeah. But then, boom.
Relativity files for bankruptcy.
Not just once, but twice.
Exactly. First in 2015 and then again in 2018 was a very dramatic fall.
It really was. So what happened?
That's the big question.
Was it just a bunch of bad decisions?
Or was there something more going on, something more deliberate behind the scenes?
I mean, you know, everyone makes mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
But two bankruptcies, that's a big red flag, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And the sources you provided, they point to several things that might have contributed. There are allegations of mismanagement, risky investments in films that completely flopped,
Yeah.
and even, and this is a big one, potentially misleading investors about the company's financial situation.
Whoa, hold on, wait. Misleading investors.
Yeah.
That's a very serious accusation.
Very serious.
And you know what? That actually makes me think back to what we were talking about earlier, those early red flags in his career, remember?
Yeah, dodging that judgment.
Exactly. So maybe this is a pattern of behavior for him.
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, was he always willing to push the boundaries of what's ethical? Maybe even crossing the line, you know, just to succeed, just to get ahead.
It's a disturbing thought.
It is. It is. So, okay, let's talk about this algorithm that Relativity was boasting about.
Yes, the algorithm.
The one that they claimed was going to revolutionize Hollywood.
They were really touting it as like the future of filmmaking.
Right. They said they were using a Monte Carlo model, which they said could, like, minimize risk and predict which movies would be box office hits.
A bold claim, for sure.
It was. Now, I mean, a statistical model like that, when used correctly, can be a powerful tool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But here's the thing. It all hinges on the accuracy of the data you feed into it.
And on the assumptions you make going in.
Exactly. And the film industry, it's driven by creativity, by artistic vision. And those things are really hard to quantify.
Impossible to quantify, I'd say.
Right. So are you saying that maybe Kavanaugh and Relativity were exaggerating what their algorithm could actually do?
Well, it's definitely possible. I mean, some sources suggest that Kavanaugh might have oversimplified the model or maybe even misapplied it altogether.
And that could have led to some of those bad investment choices that we were talking about earlier.
It's very possible. Look, even with the best algorithms in the world, you can't completely eliminate the unpredictable nature of filmmaking.
It's still art at the end of the day.
It is. And that's what makes this whole case so intriguing.
Yeah, because it's this constant tension between data-driven decisions and the wild card of creativity.
Especially in Hollywood. I mean, that's what makes it so unique.
It's a fascinating world.
Yeah.
So as Relativity's troubles started piling up, things seem to have really spiraled out of control, with all sorts of legal issues and conflicting stories about what was actually happening.
Exactly, and lawsuits started coming from everywhere.
Kavanaugh was accused of all sorts of things, like misleading investors, intentionally delaying bankruptcy proceedings.
There were even allegations that he was, like, trying to use bankruptcy to his advantage, kind of like a shield.
Wow.
And then, get this, there was even a lawsuit from his former babysitter
A babysitter? Really?
alleging unfair labor practices. Apparently, Kavanaugh hired her to take care of his newborn child.
Go.
But then he fired her after just 2 months, and the lawsuit claims he didn't pay her the proper overtime wages.
Hmm. And are we talking about, like, proper legal stuff
Oh,
here?
yeah, like not providing accurate pay stubs, which is a legal requirement.
That's not a good look.
Not at all. I mean, it just adds to this whole picture of Kavanaugh potentially putting his own interests, his own success and wealth ahead of everyone else's.
It's not exactly the behavior you'd expect from someone who's supposed to be, a role model, someone who's achieved so much success.
Yeah, it's a real contradiction.
Speaking of contradictions, let's talk about Kavanaugh's public persona, his lifestyle.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other chapter.
I mean, we've heard stories about him using a helicopter for his daily commute,
Yeah, private helicopter, very extravagant.
which kind of clashes with the whole, financial turmoil at Relativity and the accusations of him not treating people fairly, right?
Yeah, it's a bit jarring, to say the least. It's like, on one hand, you have this high-rolling Hollywood mogul living the high life.
But then on the other hand, you have these allegations of him cutting corners and basically exploiting the people who work for him.
It's a real paradox.
So how do we make sense of that?
I mean, is there a way to reconcile these two sides of Ryan Kavanaugh?
I don't know. It's a tough one. And then there's the whole thing about him moving from California to Florida.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
He said it was because of concerns about crime and homelessness in California, which, we have seen a trend of wealthy people leaving the state for those reasons.
Mm-hmm. It's a complex issue.
It is. Some people argue that it's because of California's policies,
Yep.
that they've made it less appealing for businesses and wealthy individuals to stay there.
And then there are those who say it's part of a bigger trend, about income inequality and the challenges of dealing with homelessness in big cities.
So where does Kavanaugh's move fit into all of this?
I mean, was it a political statement or was it just, a personal choice?
Yeah, I mean, Florida does have a very different political climate than California.
It does, and it has become a popular destination for people who feel like they don't fit in with California's more progressive policies.
That's true. It's hard to say for sure what motivated Kavanaugh's move, but it's definitely something to consider. And here's another twist.
Okay, I'm listening.
We have this guy who's been accused of some pretty unethical behavior.
Right.
But then we also see this, philanthropic side to him. Like, he's made big donations to Habitat for Humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And he even hosted a podcast called Failure with Ryan Kavanaugh, where he talked about people's personal experiences with setbacks and failures.
So how do we interpret that?
Yeah, is it genuine altruism or is it just, PR damage control?
Trying to improve his public image.
Exactly.
Uh.
I mean, it's really hard to know what someone's true intentions are, especially when they have so much to lose.
It's always tricky, isn't it? Trying to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes.
It is. And that's what makes this deep dive into Ryan Kavanaugh so interesting.
It's so captivating.
I mean, we're talking about a real human being here, with all their complexities and contradictions.
It's not black and white.
It's not black and white at all. And that makes it really hard to give a simple answer to the question, is he a visionary or is he a con artist?
It's a question we're going to keep grappling with, I think.
I think so, too. It really makes you think about, the nature of ambition and success.
And the fine line between brilliance and deception.
Exactly. It makes you think
Yeah.
about, redemption, like, can someone who's made these kinds of mistakes actually change? Or are they, forever defined by their past?
It's a huge question, right? I mean, it's something that we as a society are always struggling with. We want to believe in second chances, but we also have to hold people accountable.
So where does that leave us with Ryan Kavanaugh?
Yeah.
I mean, is he a visionary who just went too far?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he a straight-up con artist?
Well, based on what we've seen so far, I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. It's rarely a clear-cut case,
I get that, but it'd be easier if we could just, put him in a box.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but people are complicated.
They are.
Kavanaugh's story, it's like a cautionary tale. It's about the allure of Hollywood, the dangers of ambition gone unchecked,
Yeah.
And that blurry line between brilliance and, well, deception.
So are you saying that it's up to us to decide what to believe?
Exactly. We've laid out the information, we've shown you the inconsistencies, the different perspectives. Now it's your turn to weigh the evidence and come to your own conclusions.
Okay, that seems fair, I guess.
Yeah.
But it still leaves me feeling a little uneasy, you know? Like, how can we protect ourselves from being misled by someone like Kavanaugh in the future? I mean, how can we tell who's genuine and who's just trying to play us?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. But there are things we can do.
Okay, good. What are they?
Well, first of all, we need to be more critical consumers of information. We have to question assumptions and be willing to dig deeper when something seems too good to be true.
So basically, a healthy dose of skepticism.
Yeah, skepticism is good, but we also need to be open-minded.
Oh, that's tricky.
It is. It's about finding that balance, believing in people's potential for good, but also recognizing that not everyone has our best interests at heart.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say I'm presented with an opportunity that sounds amazing,
Uh-huh.
but it also seems a little too good to be true. What should I be looking out for? Like, what are the red flags?
Well, first of all, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is.
Yeah.
Second, do your research.
Don't just take someone's word for it.
Right. Look into their past performance, their track record, what other people are saying about them.
Makes sense. And what about those, like, once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, you know? The ones that seem super exclusive and they pressure you to make a decision right away? Are those always a bad sign?
Not always, but they should definitely make you cautious.
Yeah.
Legitimate opportunities, they usually give you time to think things through.
To do your due diligence.
Exactly. Don't let that fear of missing out cloud your judgment.
Good advice. Okay, so I'm doing my research and I find some negative information about a person or a company.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know if I should be worried?
Well, don't just ignore it.
Yeah.
Dig a little deeper. Try to understand the context. Was it a one-time thing, or is there a pattern of bad behavior?
Okay, so look for patterns. Got it. But let's be realistic. Sometimes even the most careful people can get scammed.
It happens.
So what advice would you give to someone who's been deceived? You know, maybe even by someone like Ryan Kavanaugh.
First of all, I tell them that they're not alone. Con artists are really good at what they do, and they can fool even the smartest people.
It's true.
Second, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are resources out there, both financial and emotional, to support victims of fraud.
It's important to remember that there's no shame in being a victim.
Absolutely. And in fact, sharing your experience can help prevent others from making the same mistakes.
It can.
Remember, con artists, they thrive on secrecy and shame.
Right.
By speaking out, you're taking away their power.
You are. So bring it back to Ryan Kavanaugh. What do you think his ultimate legacy will be?
Tough question.
Will he be remembered as like a Hollywood pioneer or as a cautionary tale?
It's hard to say for sure. He's such a complex figure. I mean, he's produced some incredible films.
He's made a mark on the industry, that's for sure.
He has, but then there are all these allegations against him.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag.
It really is.
Yeah.
And he almost embodies like the dark side of the American dream. You know?
Yeah.
That idea that you can achieve success at any cost, even if it means hurting other people.
That's a really interesting point, and it makes you think, right, we often idolize people who are wealthy and famous,
We do.
but we rarely stop to consider the human cost of their ambition.
It's easy to get caught up in the glamour of Hollywood,
Yeah.
but we have to remember that there are real people behind the scenes.
Their stories matter, too.
Yeah, they do.
Kavanaugh's story, I think it's a reminder that success shouldn't come at the expense of integrity and compassion.
All right.
It's a lesson we can all learn from, no matter what our goals are.
Before we move on, is there anything else about Kavanaugh's story that you think is important for our listeners to know?
Well, just to be fair, we should point out that while Kavanaugh has been accused of some serious things, he has denied any wrongdoing, and he hasn't actually been convicted of any crimes.
Right. I mean, we want to be as objective as possible here.
Exactly. People should make up their own minds. It's important for everyone to look at all the information and come to their own conclusions.
You know, this deep dive has been quite the journey.
Yeah.
We started with Kavanaugh's early career, all those red flags. Then we talked about his big Hollywood successes.
Right, the highs and lows.
And, of course, those bankruptcies.
Not just one, but two.
It's a wild ride, that's for sure.
It is.
We even got into algorithms and, you know, that whole trend of wealthy people moving out of California.
Yeah, it's all connected in a way, isn't it?
It is. It's a story about ambition, about controversy, about success, failure, and what people are willing to do to achieve the American dream.
Big questions, for sure.
They are. And before we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Okay, shoot.
In a world where charisma and controversy seem to go hand in hand, how can we tell the difference between a true visionary and a con artist?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And
Oh.
honestly, there's no easy answer. No magic formula.
I figured as much.
But there are some warning signs, some red flags that we can all look out for.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are they?
Well, first of all, pay attention to patterns of behavior.
Okay.
One lawsuit, one bankruptcy, it could be a fluke.
Right. Everyone makes mistakes.
Exactly. But if you see multiple instances of the same kind of problem, that's a sign that something might be off.
So do your due diligence.
Exactly. Don't just take someone's word for it.
Got it. What else?
Second, be wary of people who make big promises but never seem to deliver.
Ah, the all talk, no action type.
Precisely. If someone's constantly hiking themselves up but there's no real substance behind it, that's a huge red flag.
Makes sense.
Third, trust your gut.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is, but it's important. If something feels wrong, it probably is.
Yeah,
Don't let anyone pressure you into making a decision you're not comfortable with.
good advice. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement, especially if it seems like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I know, but those are the times when you need to be extra careful.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
And finally, remember that true visionaries are usually driven by a desire to make a positive impact on the world.
Not just by making money.
Exactly. They're not just in it for themselves. So look for evidence of genuine altruism, not just self-serving philanthropy.
So it all comes down to, being a savvy consumer of information.
Exactly. You have to be discerning, especially in a world where everyone's trying to sell you something.
That's a great point.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the complexities of the world.
Well said.
Thanks.
So there you have it. Our deep dive into the world of Ryan Kavanaugh.
Quite a journey.
It was. We looked at his career, the good and the bad. We examined the evidence, the allegations, the controversies,
Tried to make sense of it all.
and we gave you some tools to help you distinguish between the real deal and the not-so-real deal.
The fakers.
Exactly. So now it's your turn to decide.
Where do you stand?
Grifter or gifted?
You be the judge. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop questioning.